So, Rod, I mean, I guess start just with the basic of give us a look at your room and, what do you think of the corners to this point?
So far, we have a few new guys in, a few guys who returned from last year. I think it's been a competitive camp. Some good, some bad, still a work in progress. But I think we're on track to be where we need to be by the time we kick the season off.
A couple guys back, but, Nick Taylor and Kayshawn were more safeties last year. So how much did you get to work with them last season, and how's their transition back to corner been?
So Nick originally came in as a corner. Very unique skill set, physical kid. Felt like we need to get him on the field, and he's versatile. So we kind of transitioned him to play some nickel, and he played some safety as well. But we feel like cornerback is his natural position. Great football player. Got to find different ways to get him on the field. Keyshawn, guy who's been in the program a while, know how we do things. He was a cornerback last year. He just was a little bit further down the depth chart, but he's making the most of his opportunity this offseason.
Notice more length. To walk us through that thought process there with the size and length that you got a corner.
I think with the way the current game is played, you have to make a lot of plays in space. So teams are going to find ways to try to isolate you and create one-on-one matchups. So you have to do a great job. Make sure you have the size, number one, to get off blocks in space, to tackle the screen game. And again, like I said, if it's 50-50 balls, just physics. If you're bigger, normally you're going to be in a better position a lot than some smaller guys. And then just tackling in the open field. That's one of the toughest things doing football is open field tackling. Obviously, more size you have, more length, you don't have to be perfect. You're a 5'9" guy, you got to be darn near perfect to get some guys down in space. So for us, it was a point of emphasis to get a little bigger at that position.
You ever had a corner as big as Chom's?
No, I haven't. Never had a safety that big either when I used to coach safeties.
That's unique, though. For a guy that size, the movement and the things that you require a cornerback to do you have to coach him up a little bit differently on technique because he is so big?
That's a great question. I think a lot of times as coaches, you can't put guys into one mold. Like they have to do this, have to do that. I think you have to be flexible, and everybody have different skill sets, not just chums. But I wouldn't coach the same technique for multiple guys. Everybody's different. I've been coaching. I think this will be my 18th season. I've yet to have two players that are the exact same. If it's how they learn, how they move, how they study. So I think as a coach, I had to do a good job of being able to, to reach them where they are. So no, I wouldn't coach Chambers and Chums the same way. I wouldn't coach Keyshawn and Nick the same way. They're all different. So I had to find different ways to get the best out of them.
Jairus flashed Blacksville practices. Just what do you see from him?
Just a tough, tenacious kid, very relentless on the perimeter. And, a lot of people may not know this, but out of the entire room, he's played the most snaps at the FBS level. He played a lot last year at Kent State, and we're excited to see what he does this fall. But just high motor kid, and he's smart. He can play different positions. So, again, we're going to be excited to see his growth throughout the season.
What does Chambers give you possibly coming back?
Familiarity. He know how we do things. He know how we operate. We also know him, and there is a certain comfort level of knowing how someone's going to respond in the moments. We've seen him play in this league. We've seen him play against really good players, and we know what we're getting. So in the time of the portal and all the uncertainty, it's like a safety net to know what you're getting.
What did you learn from last year in terms of yourself individually as a coach that you can take and grow and apply to this year? Positive, negatives for yourself?
Well, Coach Rodriguez always say, we try and get better every year as coaches. I want to be the same coach I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I think the biggest thing for me is just adjusting and adapting to the times. Like the days of having guys around for 4 or 5 years and, you have time to let them develop and mold. Everything is just more accelerated now. So as a coach, we have to be as clear and concise as possible, make everything as simple and straightforward when you're teaching so you can have all the guys ready to play in a shorter period of time.
What about the Big 12 style? What did you take away from that, just broadly speaking, the different teams that you dealt with?
Good question. I think the biggest thing for me is, you always, when you're in other conferences, you hear about different leagues and how they play and the style of play. it's going to be a lot of up-tempo teams. You're going to have to defend the pass. They're going to throw it around. A lot of spread teams. So for us, like I said, one of the things, the question you asked prior, that's why the emphasis was on length. Like, you have to be able to tackle in space, and you got to be able to own those 50-50 balls. So that's the most important thing I took away from last year. Like, we have to get bigger and be able to hold up in those one-on-one situations.
Consequently, you recruit to the style that you're going to play, I guess.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Junior college corners, you got a couple of them. They're bigger guys too, but how long does it take them to sort of grasp what you're doing? I mean, I assume they're accelerated over a high school guy, but where's their learning curve?
I think, I don't want to put a label on somebody and say because they went to junior college it's going to take longer. Everybody's different. So some guys, you might have a fifth-year grad transfer that struggles to learn. You might have a 17-year-old freshman who come in who picks it up right away. So I think for us as coaches, just following the lead that Coach Rodriguez has set, where we have to do a great job of keeping everything clear, concise, and straightforward so all of our guys can play and contribute as soon as possible. So as coaches, that's our job. Make it as simple as possible so we can get the best guys on the field. So I think all the guys have done a really good job of gravitating toward what we're trying to get done.
How have the two JUCO kids done?
They've been fine. They've been fine. I think the room as a whole, they've done everything we asked them to do. They're picking up what we're trying to get done schematically, how we do things as a program, and again, excited to see their growth over the season.
Would you say you're where you want to be or where you hope to be with the group a few weeks before the season kicked off? Were you ahead of that, or it doesn't sound like you're behind it?
That's a tough question. I'm always, I don't want to say a perfectionist, but you want every day, you want to dominate. That's just me as a competitor. I want to dominate the opposition every day, but also the older I get, I realize that the opposition is also our team. So I want to see some days where, if it's Jay Bray or some of those guys make plays. So I have to remind myself of that. Every day after practice, Mountaineer football has won. Even though I may feel like crap sometimes, we give up a big play. But I think so far we're in a good spot. We're not going to become complacent. We're going to keep working, take it one day at a time, focus on the process, and then I think we'll be in a good spot in a few weeks.
Hey, Rod, Vincent Smith is a pretty interesting prospect. What do you know about him? What do you like about him since he got here in the summer?
Vincent has a great story. Comes from a tremendous family, hardworking young man. I'm sure y'all notice his size as well. He's pretty big. He's about 215 right now. Extremely athletic, fast. He's going to be a great player, and I think he could be one of those guys too in time who can serve in a multitude of roles for us. So we're going to be excited to see how the season goes for him. I know he's going to probably contribute on special teams early, and hopefully at some point throughout the season he can be contributing on defense as well.
There's a lot you go into there, but his measurables were pretty impressive. But he's moved around a bunch too. What about his story gets your attention?
So Vincent's uncle, who came on an official visit with him, he's a producer with Tyler Perry Studios. I don't even know. Are y'all familiar with Tyler Perry? Do y'all know? Okay. All right. So for me, that's fascinating. Being from the South, Tyler Perry was huge as I grew up. So I was kind of starstruck by that. His mom, she travels around the world. So Vincent, basically last couple of years of high school, he's been pretty much at home by himself, doing a lot. So very mature. Every day in the recruiting process, he was so unusual for most 17-year-old kids. He'll go to school, he'll have a job, and then he'll drive an hour away to do DB training every day. So to me, that was very refreshing. I think a lot of guys you recruit now is about, they want the attention. What can you do for them? Vincent was always a hard worker, so it was hard to get a hold to him sometime because he may be either at work or training until 10 p.m., but every day he showed that maturity level, and we've been pleased to have him.
His 40, his bench, all that stuff was pretty well known back then.
4.42?
Yeah. So were you eager to hey, is this real or is this recruiting hype? How did you blend fact and fiction, I guess, or sort fact and fiction?
Okay, I'm going to tell y'all the secret. A lot of people don't realize this. So he went to, I think it may have been an Under Armour or Rivals camp. He ran a 4.42, and the card, they give him all a card that said 202 pounds. It was a typo. He weighed in at 220, but nobody knew that. So for me, I was like, I want to keep this quiet because if you can find a kid that's 220 pounds, that strong, that explosive, to me, I think big picture, in a few years, that kid's going to be 240 pounds, and he's going to be hell on wheels. What position that is, we'll see. I hope he stays at cornerback, but he's a naturally big kid, and I think at some point you're just going to see him get bigger, stronger, faster, and just continue to grow. But we're excited to have him in the program.
Ron, I know the change is just 5 yards, but does lessening defensive pass interference penalties make you a little more accepting, if that's the right word, of guys playing aggressive because the penalty is not so much?
Great question. We're always going to be aggressive. We're not going to really change how we coach or how we teach. We want to make sure we're doing things within the rules. But like anything else, we always want to be on the edge. And if the refs call it a little tighter, then maybe you play a little less aggressive. But we always want to set the tone with our physicality, and we want to be close right there to that line always. To me, that's what competition is. You're always right there at it, and we're trying to take every inch we can get.
Vincent, you talked about him going to school, working full-time, driving to training every day an hour. When you see that as a coach, that type of effort and that type of maturity, from your perspective, does it make you more excited to work with a kid? Like, what's your perspective on seeing a kid doing that when it's so unusual?
I think it shows maturity. I think it shows time management. I think it shows that the kid's going to be a hard worker. I think it shows that once he gets to college, his acclimation may be a little smoother than some other kids because he's used to have to juggle different things that most kids may not have to do. So to do all that and still excel in sports and do a good job in the classroom is exciting for us, because the toughest transition, as you all may know, for freshmen is how do you get acclimated and adjustment to being a college student, being away from home for the first time, and have to do some time management. So seeing him do that at a younger age was very reassuring for us.